Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to the December edition of my 2017 One Month to a More Effective Compliance Program podcast series, where each month I take a deep dive into a specific part of a best practices compliance program. In the month of December, I'm taking a deep dive into better written standards, which form the very backbone of your compliance program. Written standards include codes of conduct, policies, and procedures, and we're going to be taking a very deep dive into the design of all of these, training, and revising and updating. We'll also take a look at the information communicated by the Department of Justice on what specific policies should be included in your best practices compliance program, including policies on gifts, travel, business entertainment, charitable donations, facilitation payments, third parties, and cybersecurity. We'll also take a look at certain enforcement actions and opinion releases to see what other information we can glean from these. My sponsor this month is my Doing Compliance Masterclass. We recently concluded the first masterclass in November 2017. I'm co-hosting this with Jonathan Marks at Markham LLC. We will be putting on a full series of classes in 2018. Check back for details. This month's podcast series will give you information which will allow you to set up the very foundation of your compliance program. My podcast series on 1 month to a more effective compliance program is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. Day 13, DOJ guidance on charitable donations through opinion releases. There have been 4 opinion releases in the area of charitable donations under the FCPA. In each opinion release, the Department of Justice has indicated that it would not initiate prosecutions based upon the fact scenarios presented to it. So today we're going to go through these 4 opinion releases and see what we can draw from them, and also talk about some guidance given by former head of the FCPA unit, Mark Mendelson. Opinion Release 9501. This was a request from a U.S.-based energy company that planned to operate a plant in South Asia in an area where there were no medical facilities. The energy company planned to donate $10 million for equipment and other costs to a medical complex that was under construction nearby. The donation would be made through a U.S. charitable organization and a South Asian LLC. The energy company stated it would do 3 things with respect to this donation. Number 1, before releasing funds, the energy company said it would require certifications from the officers of all the entities involved that none of the funds would be used in violation of the FCPA. Number 2, it would ensure that none of the persons employed by the charities or the LLC were affiliated with the foreign government. And number 3, the energy company would require audited financial reports detailing the disposition of the funds. Here, the DOJ indicated it would not move forward to investigate or prosecute under the FCPA. Next up was Opinion Release 9702. This was a request from a U.S.-based utility company that planned to operate a plant in Asia in an area where there's no primary level school. The utility company planned to donate $100,000 for construction and other costs to a government entity that proposed to build the elementary school nearby. Before releasing the funds, the U.S. utility company said it would require certain guarantees from the government regarding the project, including that the funds would be used exclusively for the school. This was a very short opinion release, and once again the government indicated it would not move forward to investigate and/or prosecute. Opinion Release 2006-01. This was a request from a Delaware company doing business in Africa. The company desired to initiate a pilot project under which it would contribute $25,000 to the Ministry of Finance in the country to improve local law enforcement of anti-counterfeiting laws. The contribution would fund incentive awards to local customs officials, which was needed because this African country was a major point for illicit trade, and the local customs officials had no incentives to prevent the contraband from passing through. The company said that along with the contribution, it would execute an agreement with the ministry to encourage exchange of information and to establish procedures and criteria for the incentives awards. The company said that if the program was successful, the awards would continue to be funded as needed, and the company would seek participation of its competitors in the program. The company would implement at least 5 safeguards to ensure the funds were used as intended, including: number 1, payment to a valid government account subject to internal audits. Number 2, payment only upon confirmation that the goods seized were in fact counterfeit. Number 3, the ministry would identify award candidates without input from the company and would provide evidence the funds were properly used. Number 4, the company would monitor the program's effectiveness. Number 5, the records would be required to be kept and be available for inspection for a period of time. Once again, the Department of Justice indicated it would not move forward to investigate this matter under the FCPA. Opinion Release 2010-02. Here, a U.S. company desired to move from a charitable entity model to a for-profit model in the area of microfinancing in a Central Asian country. To do so, it required to make a large cash donation to a charity in the country in question. The company engaged in 3 rounds of due diligence in which it determined that the most favorable candidate had a government official on its board of directors, but under the laws of the country in question, the government official could not receive compensation to sit as a board member. After initially listing the 3 levels of due diligence in which the country had engaged in prior to finalizing its choice of a local entity to receive the donation, the DOJ noted the donation requested of the U.S. company could be made subject to the following controls. Number 1, payments of the donation would be staggered over a period of 8 quarters rather than one lump sum. Number 2, ongoing monitoring and auditing of the funds for a period of up to 5 years. Number 3, the donations would be specifically used for the building of infrastructure. Number 4, the funds could not be transferred to either charity's parent or other affiliated entity. Number 5, the fund would not be paid to the parent of the organization receiving the grant, and there was an absolute prohibition on compensating board members. 6, the proposed grant agreement under which the funds would be donated had significant anti-corruption provisions, which included a requirement that local organizations receiving the funds adopt an anti-corruption policy, and that the company making the donations shall receive access to the local organization books and records. 7, right to terminate the agreement and recall all funds if evidence was found that reasonably suggested a breach of the compliance provisions. Once again, the DOJ indicated there would be no investigation. Finally, Mark Mendelson, who was then the deputy chief of the criminal division of the fraud section at the FCPA, said in an article written by Dick Casson that the guidelines regarding requests for charitable giving under the FCPA must be evaluated on their own merits. He advocated a common sense approach in identifying and clearing red flags. Some of the inquiries he suggested included the following questions. Is there a nexus between the charity and any government entity which the company is seeking a decision? If the government decision maker holds a position of a charity, that's a red flag. 3, is a donation consistent with the company's overall pattern of charitable contributions? 4, if a donation or service series of them is more than the company has made up to any other charity in the past 5 years, that's a red flag. And 5, who made the request for the donation and how was it made? So what are the day's 3 key takeaways? Well, number 1, never forget that you can utilize the opinion release process for a variety of issues. 2, you must manage your charitable donation program even after the money has been donated. And 3, never forget the Mendelson common sense approach to charitable donations. This is Tom Fox. I hope you've enjoyed day 14 of 1 month to better written standards, and I hope you'll join me tomorrow for day 15. This is Tom Fox again. Thank you for listening to this episode of 1 month to better written standards in a compliance program. I hope you'll join me tomorrow for another episode. If you have listened to this podcast on iTunes, I would ask that you would rate our podcast, as it would help in our rankings and also help get the word out about the only daily podcast which will give you a hint or tip to improve your compliance program. Also, if you have any questions, you can email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. This is Tom Fox. Thank you again for listening. I hope you'll join me tomorrow. My podcast series of 1 month to a better compliance program is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network.